Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have too much free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by DeAtramentis, or DeAtramentis. It's a scented ink, but when I first got it, I got a sample of it, and it did not have a smell. This has a smell, and in fact, I can't get the smell out of this pen. It's a Pilot Parallel, which I used in some of the tests, where it ran obscenely wet, so I don't know what that was about. It was also in this Knox Galileo with a broad nib, where it was still wet, but in the Parallel it was obscenely wet. So, yeah, I've never known Plums to be blue, but this is a blue, and I don't know them to smell like this. This smells like children's No Tears shampoo, you know, the ones that used to come in the bottle shaped like a fish. Anyways, let's check out the chromatography, because it's interesting. As you can see, there's this dark gray color, like a very dark gray color, and it's a very steady, even progression upwards into sort of a lighter blue, and then into a darker blue where, I don't know if this is going to come out on camera, but there's almost like a greenish undertone, just like hints of it, like a super dark teal or a super dark turquoise, which is definitely how I would characterize this ink. It definitely has some greenish undertones. So check out the paper test. Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. Now, this is a fairly dark ink, but I like it. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a dark blue, but it's got sort of, I don't know, it somehow manages to both like hint at purple and yet hint at green at points. It's got some okay shading. I mean, it's not wowing me with shade, but it's got some, which is nice in such a dark ink. 16 seconds to dry in the broad nib. Yeah, as I said. Anyways, it was pretty wet, and as you can see, it dyed the paper a little bit, but what remains is very clear, very dark, and it's that gray color like we saw in the chromatography. So decent water resistance, no bleed, feather, or spread. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where it took 15 seconds to dry. Come on, camera. You get some pretty decent shading here, but I wanted to point this out. Where it was obscenely wet in the Parallel, you start to get bits of feathering. Like just little bits, but it's sort of like it's bad omen, you know? So, yeah, again, dyed the paper a little bit, but what's there is very dark, it's very clear, and it's that gray color. Yeah, I noticed that the only places where it really feathered was where the blue hadn't completely washed away, so I thought that was interesting. But yeah, it came through on the water test, and it came through on the Parallel, and just a little bit here, but I think that might have been because it was almost like a hard start, and so it came out a little thick, but yeah. Next is Tomoe River Paper, where there was this beautiful dark red sheen where it was really wet. I hope I can get this on camera. It's particularly in the Parallel because, like I said, the Parallel was really wet, but you see it in the broad too. You still get some shading, and the sheen sort of just accentuates that shading a bit. 21 seconds to dry, which felt long to me. That's nice. Yeah, no bleed, feather, spread, but there was some echo potential because, again, this is a very dark blue and this is a very thin ink. That's very there, that's very clear, that's very dark. Dyed the paper just a bit, but, yeah. Where it was obscenely wet, that's where you really get that echo effect, but... Now, here's where things get ugly. 20-pound paper. So, yeah. 2.5 seconds to dry, so that's nice, but if you see, it gets kind of flat. It bleeds. It got so broad. I mean, I know this is already a broad nib, but that looks really, really broad. And there's some feathers, but it's more like that woolly kind of feather where it's sort of like, yeah, it looks like wool. It looks like it's starting to just, like sheep's wool. And then look at that. I mean, this whole thing has just gone blue. And it's a very bright, vibrant blue. But, you know, again, what's there is very dark, very clear. That didn't explode. What did explode is this light blue. But, yeah, maybe don't put a really wet ink in a broad nib and use it on really crappy paper. Like, you know, Mead paper. It took 3 seconds to dry, and it feathered like crazy. And yeah, I felt like it lost some of its interestingness. It's still a decent blue, but it's not quite as interesting as it was. Again, it just dyed this page that vibrant blue. But what's there is pretty there, and it's pretty dark. Yeah. And last is Moleskine paper, where I feel like it got kind of flat and gray, almost like more slaty. 7 seconds to dry. This feathering is awful. I mean, real bad. Even in this really fine writing with the corner of the parallel, there's just obscene feathers. And I kind of lost my patience because I was just like, oh, this is hideous, it's ugly. And I really do, just like from experience, just knowing, you know, my pens and this ink and papers, I really don't think this would do much better in a finer nib. It seems like whatever makes up this ink chemically reacts badly to whatever's in this paper chemically. It's a volatile mixture. It doesn't end well. But again, that's pretty readable and pretty dark, and it's just the blue that exploded. But it bled pretty bad. So, yeah, there you go. There's DeAtramentis Plum. It is scented. I don't think it smells like plums, and I don't think the color is like plums, but the ink is really nice. I mean, I'm glad I bought a bottle of it. I wish I could get the smell out of my pen, but yeah, as one who's sensitive to smells, I would caution that this ink does smell. I got a sample that didn't smell. The bottle smells. So, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Bye.